Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the live stream. So we are part of the .NET Pittsburgh user group, and then you can join us in meetup.com, PGHDOTNET, and we have our social links here. Today we are going to look into power of Playwright scaling UI testing from robust application delivery. Randy Pagels is trying to join us. He's having some technical glitch. He has dropped out a couple of times. So let's give it a few minutes for him to join. Once he's available, we'll be able to go through. If there is more technical glitches, then we will reschedule for a later time. Sorry for the inconvenience caused. Give us a few minutes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Randy. Glad finally it worked, and we are live here, so you can get started. I don't want to waste time. Thank you. You want to share your screen, and probably I can add it to the screen.
Okay. All right, let me do that. We'll get started here. Let me know if you can see it okay.
I can't. Yeah, okay. I think I can. Hold on a second. Let's back here. Yep, it's all good.
It's all good?
Yep, perfect. We can get started. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start. All right, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining this session called The Power of Playwright. My name is Randy Pagels. I'm a principal trainer at Zebia. I've built content and trainings and mostly around AI. I've been to Zebia for about just over 2 years now. So I do deliver a lot of trainings for Microsoft and GitHub, mostly, again, Copilot and advanced security. Today's talk's around Playwright, something else I dabble in. I have a passion for is UI automation. So hopefully, whether you're new to Playwright or an experienced Playwright user, you'll find something of value here. So let me go through some slides and some demos, and we'll see where we end up here. The agenda is quite simple. We'll go through a few of the testing challenges and some of the overviews that are here. I want to walk through what it looks like to take manual tests and automate those tests, and then using Copilot as well to generate a few extra tests. And then we'll go through some continuous type of testing, which is a fun part. So what are the UI's challenges nowadays? Is testing is hard. It's not easy to write UI tests and keep them maintained. Tests take time to learn. The frameworks that you have to go out and learn today are difficult as well. And then tests usually are slow. UI automation tests, ideally too, they're not ideally, but they do end up being flaky sometimes and they crash a lot. And then when they break and they're brittle, we have to go fix them. So it's just hard to maintain these UI tests. That's kind of the challenges. The modern testing goals of today are really wanting the whole point was to try to make tests easy, try to make testing fun if you can, and make it very painless to get started with testing as well. And then of course we want testing tools. As a developer, I want my testing tools to just flow into my workflow. I don't want to have to think about it. And then I'm making, of course, once I get that far, I want to make sure my my test pipeline integrates very well with CI/CD, of course. And then and ultimately is I want that part of my CI/CD pipeline. So every time I make a change to the application, I don't have to think about running or rewriting tests. I can, they just work. That's the idea here. Some of the best practices or in automation is really important that each test should be able to run independent from one another. Never chain or order tests, have them independent, have them run one at a time. Make sure they can be easily part of the CI/CD pipelines. You want to be able to, a very clean setup, clean up an automated piece of this test as well. And then using frameworks, right? If the test fails, I don't want to have to chase it. I want to know why it failed. I want a screenshot, maybe a video log. Would be awesome to have that as playback. Some of the pro tips here I would say is if you focus on one test, one behavior, have that test end-to-end work and test something that you're looking for, not dependent on anything else again, which goes back to tests should be run independently. And they should be very self-describing the test itself. Put it right in the name. Why not? The other takeaway here is you don't have to automate all your tests. You want to make sure whatever UI you're testing works most of the time. 80%, the 80-20 rule, 80% of the time. Make sure that works well and make sure you can run at scale as well. So I'm talking about Playwright here, the Playwright framework. It's quite simple. The architecture is there's the language binding. So it probably supports at least 8 to 10 different languages here. I'm going to show you TypeScript today. And then also there's the Playwright team has built this common unified layer, this API layer to tap into. And then of course it's native with browsers. So it supports Chrome, supports WebKit. So if you're doing mobile testing, Safari testing, and of course it runs across Windows, Linux, Mac, right? The typical stuff here. Getting started is quite simple. It's as simple as one. I'm going to show it to you from Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code has an awesome extension, really easy to get started with that, simple to install. And then you can simply check or you can actually figure out which particular browsers you want. I'll just use Chrome today, make it simple, but you could pick Firefox and WebKit as well. And then running tests. So once you've had that installed, you can run tests. Again, as a developer, I don't have to think about it. I can run them from my UI. So what I like to do is just show you a couple examples here. And let me make sure that this is running here. I should have had it running for you already, so apologize there. Here, let me go like this. Right. So I just have a simple app. And I just realized I have the wrong Visual Studio up, so let me move that over. This is much better. Sorry about that. There we go.
And Andy, do you mind hitting that hide icon in the bottom?
Hitting the which in the bottom?
The hide icon, the sharing, stop sharing.
Oh, this. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I understood. It did get in the way a little bit, didn't it?
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So this app is a real simple to-do list app. And what I want to show you is basically getting started from scratch. Again, I'm brand new to Visual Studio. I could just do Command Shift and say test install Playwright. And what Playwright will do is go out and install the proper packages for me. It also lets me pick what I'd like to pick here. So I could pick Firefox, Chrome, etc. And then it also creates a GitHub Actions pipeline for you. So I won't go through all that, but just keep that in mind. The GitHub Action pipeline looks something like this. It's a very, very simple starting point. The main task here is we'll run, install, and run Playwright, which is right here. It's quite simple. It's just running Playwright test. So again, without going through all that, I thought that was pretty awesome. The other thing it does is create a config file for you. So if I look at the Playwright config file, this is just a common config. You definitely need to have this, but this is things that you can do things like this. Make sure that the tests run in parallel. I could make sure the reporter is HTML output. I like the on first retry setting. So basically what happens if you can capture things like video and screenshots if the test fails. And then of course I can come down here and enable my project, my browsers, but I left them blank. I basically commented them out just to make this simple. Okay, the next thing I could do is even run the first test here. There's a test folder on the left. If you'll notice these icons here, right, I can very easily run my test as a developer. This is quite straightforward. And one thing I'm going to show you before I run this is if I open up the Test Explorer itself, you'll notice I have a Playwright blade, and I could do things like show me the Chrome. I could say show the browser when I'm actually working. So if I go over here and run a test, I want to make sure that the test actually works and pops up, which it does. And then I assert that, make sure that it's expecting to see the .NET user group, which it did. So that's good. The other thing I could do is actually run the next test, and I can just keep running them in the browser, in Visual Studio. Make sure that it asserts what it's supposed to do, which that was good for that one. What's also interesting to me is if I go like this, let me go ahead and I'll leave this open for now. If I come here and put a breakpoint, and let's say I change a value. Let's say I move this and make it, I break it and have it say star instead. What I can do is right click on here, or actually I won't even click it. I'll just say I want to run this and something's broke. What I really like about Playwright is it's connected back to the browser itself. Now I see there's an error here. If I click this, I can see there's basically it's reporting saying, you know what, I found this 3 times. If I go here, it also highlights the actual page you're testing on what it found. So it found the word star 3 times. So basically it's saying, hey, which star do you want me to check? Basically is what it's asking. So that's really nice. Now, real-time debugging allows me to do something like this too. I could actually start like typing it live. Started like that. Notice that it goes down to highlights 2 places now. And if I put this back the way it was, right, it shows me 1. And I can say, okay, this is great. Let's go ahead and continue. And I could actually just rerun the test and it'll be fixed. So again, the interaction between the code and the actual test is a pretty awesome thing. So I definitely like that. Same thing if I debug this. If I right-clicked and said, go ahead and run debugging, full debugger support, put your breakpoints in. As soon as this stops and I go ahead and run that, you'll be able to see all your DOM elements inside of the code. So that's another nice thing. So again, it stopped and it stopped. I can hover over page. I can see the different elements that I have access to. So it's pretty rich as far as the API endpoints go. So again, another nice thing, I can hover over these and fix things, and I can say continue, forward, backward, hop over, all your typical debug stuff. So again, very nice UI here. Now, another nice thing I like to do is, I think this is a pretty cool feature too. Let me go ahead and close this. I'll just close both of these, why not? Is if I go to the Testing Explorer, there's another button here that says right here, record new. I get asked this quite a bit usually as well. If I want to record brand new, and I'm going to try to make this, I'm going to try to show both these at the same time, if best I can anyway. Let me go like this. The screen's a bit big, so let me try to make it smaller a little bit. I wanted to show you though, as I'm programming here, or as I'm hitting the browser endpoint, you'll see that line 4 in the code is starting to capture what I'm doing. And if I actually typed in the URL correctly, you'd be surprised how successful this is. Why is that not working? It's odd. Let me just try that one more time. Maybe the app stopped. I didn't think it did. Yeah, I think it might have stopped, so my bad. All right, let's try this again. I'm going to go back here and I'm just going to stop that recorder. Let's just start it again. I'll say click a new one. I think this is worth seeing if it works. If it doesn't, we'll move on. Again, it's going to record my every click. So that takes all the typing and thinking away from me. You can see on the right-hand side, it's actually code generating. So if I go back to the browser now and type in a URL for starting point, I get my app up, and then I can start doing things like, say, this is my to-do list, right? So I can just say, hey, buy some cheese, whatever. And you'll see the clicks are happening in the code itself as I'm working the application, whatever it might be. Maybe I'm logging in, doesn't matter. Feed the cat, things like that. And then what I can do, of course, I can go over here and complete one, and I can click buttons, and I can click like that. And I can just keep on recording, right? So, and then when I'm done, I can actually click at the very top. You have these buttons for assert text. So I could actually say, make sure there's one item left or something like that. Make sure that I could say, okay, the code will be added as an assert into my actual code now. So that's all well and good and fun. And then I can come back here and say, okay, let's test this, make sure it works. So I'm going back and forth super fast, interactive back and forth. Takes all the thinking out of this. It actually runs the test. You can see on the left. No, I guess it's not centered here. Yeah, like that. There we go. And of course, if it fails, I can fix it and move on, right? It's saying it's looking for 1, which is not 1, it's 2, or 0. So I could actually change this, right, to 0 and go ahead and rerun the same test. And again, it's super easy to iterate and make the test work really well. All right, the next thing I'm going to show you is, I'm going to show you this, that's the code gen, they call it. Now, this is a tool. Playwright has a lot of tools built into it. So let me go ahead and stop this. If I come back to the command line now, the terminal, I'm going to go ahead and create a new terminal here for myself. Yeah, PowerShell is probably good enough. And what I want to do is run the CodeGen tool, which is called Playwright CodeGen. And also what's interesting here is if this app is going to cooperate for me today, I can come back here and go back to the same URL. And I can start clicking around, maybe delete a few things, add a few things, just interact with the application. And notice also on the right, the CodeGen, I'll make it a little bigger. The CodeGen tool is building the code for me on the fly. Now, keep in mind, this is independent from my actual Visual Studio code, but it is part of the tool. Now, what's slick here is I can see this in TypeScript, so I can just simply cut and paste this as a test. So I can go off and do experimental or exploration, record, and then cut and paste that. I can also flip this to maybe say, hey, I'm using Java today. I can flip it to a different language, or maybe I'm using Python or any of it. So I don't have to know the syntax, not so much. I can just go ahead and grab that and hit record, and I can interpiece this thing together. So I think that's pretty slick. Okay, I'll stop that now. That's CodeGen. And also, there's so many other command tools here I want to show you. For instance, let me go like this. First of all, the way Playwright works is it runs tests that are sitting in the test file. Let me just get rid of these. We don't need these anymore. And I'm going to take this, move it into the test folder, so I have another application, basically what I do here. Interesting too piece of this code is the ability to do something like this. I could do there's a command called test before each. So if you go back to the same URL, remember that every test should be independent from one another. I can always go back to the same URL. I don't have to go back and keep on typing that URL. Unlike something like this, I could hard code it, right? Or again, the better way to do it is this. And I can just add it once at the very top, and then I can just go ahead and repeat that. So that said, let me go ahead and show you a couple extra goodies here, command line wise. I could do something like this. Let me clear the screen, give myself some room. Remember I showed you I could run these one at a time like this. And of course the browser will pop up and do one thing. And then it completes, it says it's passed. But what else you can do is like this. I could just clear the screen and actually type in the command, which is the npx playwright test. And then you could actually cherry pick a specific test file, which is what I did. And then there's many different commands at the end of that line. I can say reporter, I can say list, I can say HTML. If I just say list, what's nice is Playwright will actually list out the different tests here. There's 18 tests running against 6 workers. It lists them out, and then it goes back and runs and tests those. So this is great for a single machine. I'm only running 6 workers here, but it actually goes through each of the tests. So much faster to do bulk testing here. Now, one of my favorites is this trace viewer. Let's go ahead and stop. I'll go ahead and let this finish and then stop it. The trace viewer is really slick. It's another great tool that's part of Playwright. If I just type in at the very end here, give myself some room here. If I do something like this, it's called trace on. So what happens is all the tests run, but it also gathers up information like videos and screenshots if something breaks, which I have a few. You can see a few of these are breaking, which is they're supposed to break, which is good. Let me go like this. And what allows me to do now is actually view the traces with a report. There's a report that gets built and dumped out for me automatically. If it's not there, I can always do a show report, but it actually is running right now. It should pop the report up for me. You can see right there. Unfortunately, it put it on my other screen, so let me go ahead and pop it over to here like this. This is the report that Playwright generates for me. I can see all. I can see the failed ones. Generally speaking, as a tester, I only really am concerned about the failed ones. So what's nice is I can go in here and open the test up itself and see the actual run. So now I can see which exact line number failed, so line 72. And further, I can actually go down here and open up the trace file, which is right at the bottom here. When I click the trace file, this opens up a playback of that test. And at the very top, they call this a time travel debugger. I can actually go over and as I go through the steps, I can hover over and see what the actual screen looked like during the test itself. And I could do a few other things like come down at the bottom here. I can see the actual errors. I can click on the source, so I can actually see the source code of the actual test, which is nice as well. And the last thing that makes this super powerful is not only do I get a complete trace of the test and why it failed, I can click open up the DOM here in the test run. And now I get full DOM access to the individual components that ran as of the test failed. So again, pretty slick. All right, I will stop this. Last but not least. Now, again, you saw I was creating tests, running tests. I'm in Visual Studio Code. I can do all these things, which is great. the one thing is the last command I'll show you, and then we'll get back to a few others, is this command called --UI, which it's the ultimate cockpit for running tests, and I'll show you why. This is a tool, and I'll make it a little bigger here. This tool here allows me to see all my tests in my suite, and I can actually say, run all my tests for me. And this is going off and running each individual test. But what's nice is I have this one-stop shopping here, a single pane of glass for you for my testing. And I could click on the tests that are running and see them actually working. We can see what's going on. It's collecting network information, showing me what's going over the wire. Anything that fails, I can go ahead and look at it. I get my timeline across the top here. I can pick any test. I can see when that just failed, and I can actually go see what actually the output looks like. So this is pretty slick as well. There is another little eyeball here called the watcher. When you click that, it actually sync up with the actual code itself. So if I'm making changes, what happens is if I make changes to the code, what will happen, and I could maybe try to show you this. I'm on my to-do app. If I look at this add task to do app, try to squeeze this over for you. If I say add task here and I click on the eyeball, what it's doing is watching the code now. So if I come over here and make a change, whatever the change might be, just a line change, what happens is the test will automatically rerun. I don't have to go back and say run, try it, run, try it, run. It just automatically reruns, as you can see right here, by just simply making a code change. It's really slick, especially if you have two monitors up. So I like this UI tool. It's pretty cool. Nice. Okay, let's go back. I have a lot to show you. We're only getting started. I'm glad I have 30 more minutes. So the next thing I want to show is talk about automating manual testing. So yes, we can build tests from scratch. I can go out and record something. A lot of customers I work with have manual tests. Generally speaking, they're in Excel spreadsheets, but they are manual tests. So what can we do there? We can actually use, let's talk about test plans in Azure DevOps. So if I'm sitting in Azure DevOps, I can, let me show you what that would look like. I can actually take the tests themselves. Oh, I went back, sorry, I went back. And I can actually automate my test cases and make them, turn them basically into Playwright tests very simply. And what I can do is actually take the test itself and set it up. And then through a special plugin, I can actually automate the test. So if you think about that for a minute, I'm actually taking a manual test and creating an equivalent of that test in Playwright, and then wiring it back to the test in number 2 here. And then number 3, when I actually run automation, it will actually mark the test as either pass, fail, whatever. And I'll show you what that looks like. And of course, we want to do this with continuous. I'm a big fan of DevOps, so of course we want to do this with continuous testing, which allows the CI/CD pipeline now to install all those dependencies it needs. It installs the Playwright browsers it needs. It parallelizes the test, or parallelization with the test. So if I have 20 tests, I can run it on 20 threads, 30 threads, 40 threads, much faster. And then of course I get a nice report at the end of that. So let's go check that out real quick here. Well, I still have time. I'm going to do this. Again, just a few extra little goodies here I'll show. So if I go to my project, I didn't realize this wasn't logged in. Apologies there. What the heck? Here we go. If I go into my actual test plans, now if you're familiar with Azure DevOps or not, there's an actual test plan blade here. And I can create a test suite. I can add these suites under the plan. I can say I can shop. Let's say this website here. So I have an eShop web. I'm just searching for .NET stuff, right? Who wouldn't want to buy more Microsoft.NET stuff? And it's just a simple shopping app. So again, I have manual tests here. So if I actually looked at one, if I wanted to go, let's say, go buy a mug, the test steps are quite simple. It's just step 1, step 2, step 3. There's no rocket science here at all, right? It's just manual steps. Usually a tester would follow these steps and mark it pass or fail manually. So what I can do is grab this ID, right? This ID and the test case ID on the right-hand side here. I can also go to execute and see what is happening here. If you're not familiar with test case management, real quick, I'll show you another thing. There's an area for configurations, which is the test matrix. So now what I can do is set it up and say, my matrix is using testing Windows 11, using Chrome or something like that. So very easy to set up a configuration. And then I can go ahead and let's go look at the test itself. Let's go back to a test plan. Once we define the test, right, and then we can go ahead and set it up. Like I said, we used to manually test these and they would manually pass or fail, but why not automate them? And then I can go over to, let's say, very easily here, I can actually look at this test case and look at the execution history. I'm going to show you how this actually happened in a minute. And I can see the long list of test runs, which is, again, helps me with this. So what I want to do now is show you another area here for basically the progress. So again, if you're a manual tester, you automate these. We have this nice report that runs, 14, 30 days, whatever. So I can see I have some tests here, 13 pass, 1 didn't run, there's a fail. I could scroll down here and actually drill into what's failing, why is it failing, things like that. But there's a better way to do that. And before I show you some of that automation, I want to show you a couple more things here real quick here, is how I basically got my manual test to convert over to, and that's quite simple. Inside of Azure DevOps, I can actually take the test grid, and these are, again, the test I showed you with the steps, and actually zoom in here and take this one ID 11185, and guess what? I'm using GitHub Copilot to actually convert these. So I took a dump of all the different manual tests, and then I just using prompt engineering prompts to say, hey, I want to take this CSV file and convert all these tests into Playwright tests. And I'm using TypeScript. You can see the very top here. I'm a testing assistant. I'm converting these. Please do this, giving Copilot some guidance a little bit in the prompting. Nowadays, we use Copilot almost all the time. So it's quite straightforward. Each test case has an ID, a title, and steps. It's quite simple. And then the approach is using the Playwright runner. So now Copilot can actually write the test for me. So that test file you saw, I didn't write it, Copilot did. And then here's some steps. Here's an example. In the end, you'll get a file that looks something like this. If we zoomed in and looked at one of these, you can see that Copilot did a pretty darn good job of converting it into my test TypeScript. So I thought that was pretty slick. Now, in order to take the Playwright test, if you notice the ID number here, the key to all this, making the glue here, the glue that works, is the ID of the test case. So you create a new test, I have to come here and automate it and then tie it back to the 11185, and it all falls in the suite. There's a special tool, or special, I should say, reporting tool called the Playwright Azure Reporter by Alex Neo that built this. And basically what it does is allow me to, during automation, allow me to write the test results back, pass, fail, then whatever errors are back, into this very friendly TRX file. And then it gets uploaded as part of the pipeline, pretty much. That's pretty straightforward. I'll make sure I show that as well. The other thing that we can actually do now with model context protocols, if you're using any of this with your Visual Studio or your GitHub Copilot, allows me to use Visual Studio now to have Copilot write my tests for me. I don't even have to write the manual tests anymore, right? If you're not familiar with that, there's a Playwright MCP server out there that allows me to interact with it using agent mode from my Visual Studio. So another thing that's fun to play with, if you get some time, give that a try. And what will happen is I can actually ask Copilot, hey, I have this website, go out there and run some test scenarios for me. And Copilot will go out and do that for me. So let's go ahead and look at that. The problem, I just need to get Let me just load that up. I actually thought I had it loaded. My bad. Sorry about that. Let's go like this. All right. Let me clear the chat, close these out. So I first of all have to make sure my my agents are running. So I can come over here and say MPC servers. Whoops, come on. MPC servers. Let's make sure the Playwright server is running. And again, there's tools here, so I can actually go down to my right here. This is the server right here. I can see that it's checked, so most likely running. But if I click the gear, I can come into the actual settings, and you can see I can turn my servers on and off here. So I'm playing with Playwright right now, and I'm going to go ahead and click on Start, which will start the server, as you can see right here. Now that it's started, it makes it easier to obviously work. So what I can do, let's just go ahead and grab that. I forget what the URL is already. Let me go ahead and just grab that. If I can find it in 1 second. This one. I'm going to grab that same URL. And go back to Visual Studio and ask Visual Studio. I'm going to say explore this website at, and I'm going to give it the URL right inside of the prompt. I thought I just copied it. Did I not copy it? Oops, sorry. What the heck? Here we go like this. Sorry, I thought I copied it. There we go. Basically just paste in the URL. I want to explore this website and tell me what it is. It is. And then I'm going to say create the top 3 Playwright tests for I'll say multi-step scenarios. Something like that. So I'm just giving it a natural English, natural language style prompt. And then Copilot will go out and explore that site. One nice thing you've probably seen in agent mode now, I can actually have a checklist on the upper right-hand corner. Right now, Copilot is agent mode is actually contacting the server, which is contacting the site. We should see it launched. But the key here is I'm having Copilot explore that site, navigate around, click around, make some things up, and make the test for me and complete tests for me. And they'll basically place them in the test folder. I know we're going to run out of time today, but I wanted to show you, at least give you a sneak peek at this. So this is pretty cool. This is actually quite nifty to be able to not have to think about the test itself, to basically exercise this website, and it will do that for me by just giving it some simple commands. I could say things like, hey, go out and buy a mug, and I want 50 of them, and put it in a shopping cart, and then log in as this user and log back out, etc. I can do all that by just giving it commands. So you can see Copilot already created this test here called the top scenario test, which is what I said to do it. Copilot already knows that the tests live in the test folder, so why not put it there, which it did. And then I could come here. What's nice too about if you're with agent mode, by the way, not only is agent mode very self-healing, but it also will go ahead and run the test for me. So I can say, go ahead and run the test. We're running out of screen real estate, so apologies there. So again, I want to at least show you a little bit of this MCP server to run and build the test. You can see it's executing the test now for me. It's up to me as a developer now to go tweak the test to make sure it's doing what I want. It's even found the login page. It's going to log in for me. Maybe, maybe not. I didn't tell it how to log in, so it really won't know how to do that. But I won't make you watch the rest of that because we're going to run out of time. So let me just continue, have more to show you. Another thing you can use the MPC server for is use the MPC server along with Azure DevOps. And I could ask the MPC server along with GitHub Copilot Agent Mode and Playwright to not only build the tests, but create the manual tests and add it into my test suite for me, and then go ahead and create a Playwright test and wire it up for me automatically. I'm using natural language prompts to do this. And again, now I've connected Azure DevOps with Playwright, with the script itself, and it becomes part of my CI/CD pipeline, which is right by adding a test. Keep in mind, the tests all run. Actually, let me show you the other one. The test will be in the test file itself, the folder here called Playwright tests. So as the MCP server builds more tests, it keeps adding them to this folder. So naturally, the CI/CD pipeline just picks them up, which looks like this. So let's talk about continuous integration testing now. Again, part of the pipeline, one of my stages is run all the Playwright tests. So we saw this earlier a little bit, and I didn't show you the pipeline, so I wanted to show you that. The pipeline looks something like this. The long and short of it is the stages, this Playwright testing service stage. You saw that on the screen. The Playwright testing is right here. Sorry about that. This is more here at the top. And the key on this whole line here is basically right here. Just npx Playwright test, just like I did it at the command line here in the window. It's doing it on the runner now. That's the only difference. And then, of course, I publish the results back up to the pipeline. So what's the pipeline look like? Let's go look at that. If I go into one of the pipelines, again, Azure DevOps pipelines, I've done this from GitHub action workflows as well. You'll get the same kind of results. If I go into the pipeline, I can see the runs. Let's just look at the last run, which was 12 hours ago. I get your usual stuff. These are the 97% pass. So if I click this, I can see the Playwright has run. You can see down here on line 742, 62 is passed. The problem with this is, well, it's not a problem, but first of all, I get the logs, right? I'm running 67 tests. Remember, it depends on where you work, but in Azure DevOps, you can have parallel runners, build runners. Now, you have to pay for those. So where I'm working, I'm not paying for it. I only have one worker, as you can see here. So as you can see, also the test took 12 minutes to run those 67 tests. So that's fine. They're very, they're very serialized here, one at a time. And I get my results and I can post them out. So again, if I want to see the results of the actual run, I can go over here and click the, I went back too far. I can click the pipeline run and click tests. I can see the 67 tests now. I can see I have about a 97% pass rate, which isn't bad. I also, because of the way the test results are published, allows me to go in and see, I could go like this and say all my tests. So I get this nice list. But really what I'm really concerned about is the ones that fail. And also let me back up one step here. With Azure DevOps pipelines, I can also do analytics on the pipeline itself. So over time, how well is my pass rate happening here? I have 1.7 thousand results. I'm averaging 93% pass rate. Not so bad, right? So that's not too bad. Now again, in the Azure DevOps world, I don't have to worry about these tests because they're going to run automatically. When I go ahead, I'm going to show you what a failed test looks like. So let's say we have a test that breaks. In Azure DevOps here, I get all the information I need, very much like I showed you in the tool. I get the actual line number. I can scroll down here a little further. I can get video. I can get attachments. So I can see the actual file of the JPEG. If it would render right, probably won't. It's okay. But I also get that trace file I showed you. I get the zip of that, and of course a video. So it's all here part of the CI/CD pipeline now, just here waiting for me.
There is one question from Jose.
Okay.
Do you mind taking it now, or you want to?
Yeah, no, now it's fine. Sorry, Jose,
Okay.
I had the wrong window open. So let me look at your question. How can we use Playwright in a WPF app project in C#? Thanks. The Playwright server really only works with web-based browser type style testing at the moment. It doesn't do Windows testing, things like that right now. So sorry about that, Jose.
One other question from me, Randy, is you did talk about you're using hosted agents here. Like, can you have like our like the regular DevOps agents that I can use to run the Playwright in parallel?
You were saying, can you use regular DevOps agents?
The hosted agents, I mean, like you're using hosted agents. Like
yes.
You mentioned like one worker process. I'm trying to ask if we have self-hosted agents. In that case, can I run parallel like a regular DevOps pipeline?
Oh, sure. If you're doing self-hosted, yeah, you can.
Okay.
Yeah, much faster, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, it takes some money to have these parallel runners, but if you have your own self-hosted runner, of course, it doesn't cost you anything.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, I have the chat open now, so I didn't. I am not a StreamYard master yet. Okay, so to continue the story, what I'm showing you is the actual run of the CI/CD pipeline, which is awesome. And if I go back to the test tab, you can also see the runs here. So if I look at the test runs of the runs themselves, the output from those Playwright tests will show up here. And I get a nice long list here. I can even just go over here and see which ones have the highest or the lowest pass rate, right? If I were a developer having to go fix these, I probably would start somewhere here. So I could probably just click right into here, and I can see I have 75 tests. I see that 6 of them timed out. I have 4 that failed. Of course, I would focus on the failed ones and click that failed. And I can look at the test results themselves too and see which ones failed. So it's very easy at a glance to see this. Now, what else you can do is go into the failed one, very similar to what I showed you with the test, like the actual pipeline, but I get the information I need here. But what's even better than that is, again, at the very bottom, you see the screen attachments. But I can actually just say, I don't have time for this right now. I'm going to go ahead and create a bug. And creating a bug is a work item type, of course, in Azure DevOps. And the rich information that comes from that is here. It's also linked here, tested by on the right-hand side. So I have this linkage now, which is that they call this a rich bug. And I can just assign this to maybe myself. And I'll, say the reason is brand new, build failed. Well, it's not build and fail, I'll just say new and go ahead and save it. Now I can go off and finish my work and come back to and fix this another time because I have all the information I need. I already have it, so which is nice. All right. So that is CI/CD pipelines. Now let's just take it a whole step further than that, right? That's your typical one worker, we're working on it. So let's just move it forward. Let's look at this at scale now. In case you haven't heard, there is a Microsoft Azure service called the App Testing Service. And recently, I mean, really recently, in fact, to the point I had to change this demo just 3 or 4 days ago, is what the Microsoft App Dev team did was create the App Testing Service, which combines load testing along with Playwright testing at scale. So it's a very simple model, pay as you go. You get you can, of course, get your reports and things like that, but allows you to run these tests continually using CI/CD. The architecture looks something like this. So if I create a JMeter test for load testing, or I create Playwright tests for UI automation, I just have one-stop shopping to create this workspace and run these tests. And what it does is it spins up multiple instances of the browsers and the test engines as it needs it. You can tell it how many you want. Today, we're focused on just the Playwright workspace piece, so I'll skip the load testing piece. So think about taking those tests and running them at scale. So if you're an organization running hundreds and hundreds of tests, right? One at a time would take forever in your pipeline. We don't want to do that. We want to run it much, much faster. And I'm going to get all the questions answered at the end here. Okay, so just give me 1 minute here. So what that looks like is this. It's very simple. Is I can run this from any of the pipelines, workflow, DevOps, Jenkins, doesn't matter. And then I can just specify the number of workers I want to run, up to 50. and that's pay as you go. What happens on the back end is Azure spins up 50 instances and runs each Playwright test independent from one another across whatever browser or operating system you specified. And then, of course, the output is the test, the actual same thing, right? Video, screenshots, things like that. Now, if you look at this closely, you can see just at a glance, my original run took 10 minutes across one worker, and I did the same exact test and it took less than 1 minute. So let me see if I can just show you a few of these things here before we get too off rattle here. Will this work? Yeah, this might work. So I can just do something like this. Running it locally looks like this. I can say, same thing, command line, right? Playwright test. I'm configuring it. I'm using the service configuration file now, which is a little different. And here's the key. I'm saying 40 workers. I won't make you watch this, but this calls the service. You can see here, Azure Playwright service. It's going to run it across 40 workers. It should only take minutes. There's 50. You can see here in the lower left here, 50 tests across 40 workers, way faster, very, very fast. The pipeline looks like this. If I scroll down a little bit, the pipeline is quite similar to the previous pipeline. The only difference is I'm using a special config file. I'm passing in the number of workers that I want. And then, of course, I have to have the service URL, which is an Azure endpoint. And then, of course, I just pass in whatever website I'm testing, right? Part of the test. That's just for display purposes. And when the service is done, it'll upload the artifacts up to the site so I have access to my artifacts. And you can see even here, if I open this up, you can see how much faster this is actually testing all these. So the service is running them all independent from one another pretty fast. And because of the way I had that wired up, so if I go back now, back here, this report will show the progress of everything all up is here. And then, of course, if I actually click the test plan and hit the test runs, the specific service test run shows up as in this list as well. The difference is it'll say QA Playwright test run versus the Playwright test run. I mixed them together a little bit here, but that's okay. I showed this already, but it looks very similar. This is running 67 tests. Same sort of thing. I can look at the results, figure out which is failing, which is passing, etc. So the other thing I was going to show you is service test results, the output of that. So if I go back to the pipeline, whoops, sorry about that. Let me go back to the pipeline real quick. I kept the pipeline quite simple, by the way. If I go to the pipeline output, and if I scroll down to the second stage, which is the testing service stage, and I'll just show you the real quick piece is at the very top here. I passed in, I think it was 20. So I said, give me 67 tests, 20. You can make that parameter, but I just made it 20. And it runs across the service and then it outputs it. So it uploads the report. And then it's just up to me to go out and look at that. So let me look at some questions real quick here. Question, does this support self-healing of test cases? What's interesting about that question is if you're using the Azure, so the short answer is yes, if you use Playwright with the MCP server. MCP server will run the test, see it failed, and provide the code to fix it. I'll patch the code and rerun the test. I've actually built tests that way. So Playwright MCP server will self-heal, which is nice. That's part of the agent though. I have to go. Thank you so much. Okay, great. A couple last little tidbits here. I know we're right at time. I want to be respectful of everybody's time as well. Keep in mind if you're running Playwright tests, using Entra authentication is the best way to do that. This is what I'm doing for the Playwright tests. The other thing is you could also store credentials locally. So back in the Visual Studio world here, I could actually go into this file called .env. Here you could actually store a few extra things. So keep in mind these don't get checked into source control. Very important. They don't get checked into source control. So I can test all this stuff locally, make sure it works. The other thing is ideally you would store things like in Key Vault. So if I'm testing a database connection string or something. Store that in Key Vault's the best way to do that. I showed you local dev. The downfall here is if you have MFA or two-factor authentication, Playwright doesn't do really well with that, right? It doesn't be able to stop. It can't detect that, so I can't. It's sending something to my phone, right? So I can't detect that and continue on. So keep that in mind. Did I already answer the question from Jose about Playwright and WPF? I think I did, right? Yeah, I think I did. Okay. A couple comparisons here. Again, I've used Selenium. I've used Playwright. Playwright is the kind of the newest thing here. It's owned by Microsoft. It's open source, so it's free. It supports many different languages. What's nice is the speed. It's native. It's using its own protocols. Of course, it's very fast. The framework is quite easy to work with. Really easy to work with CI/CD pipelines as well. I find that TypeScript provides the richest API calls, the richest experience for me. And then, of course, the extension in Visual Studio Code just makes it a joy to use too. So always fun there. Very fast to use, very fast to adopt. And then as far as some source here, this presentation I just provided is at the very bottom left-hand corner, getup.com, my last name, Pagels R. Also, I can upload it, Bali, if you let me know if you want me to upload the PDF for you. Happy to do that too, provide that to you. So the eShop one I showed you that there. There's also a movie database. I didn't have time to play with that one, but that was a fun one too. If I this is another site that's fun to go play with and ask Playwright to go out and create 5 tests that exercise this website, and it'll make up tests for you. It'll actually click details. It'll actually go dark mode, light mode, does a few fun things for you. So that's another site. I put that in a slide here just for fun. And I'd say give it a try. Also, hit me up on LinkedIn if you have questions, or go through Bali. Bali knows how to get a hold of me as well. Happy to help, provide other resources. With that, I know that was a whirlwind tour of Playwright, but I wanted to give you at least some insight. Hopefully you saw some things maybe you didn't see before. I don't know. If nothing else, had a little fun. So Bali, I'll throw it back to you.
Hey, thank you, Randy. It was really powerful presentation and showing Playwright and also combination with MCP server. That is something recently I've been exploring. It's really good, and the combination.
Awesome.
One quick question I had is related to the CAPTCHA. Is there a way that Playwright can handle CAPTCHA when you're testing forms or anything like that? Do you know?
Capture forms? Like, what do you mean?
Like a Google reCAPTCHA on a forms testing. So if there is a form which has a CAPTCHA, would Playwright be able to automate that and click the CAPTCHA for you? Or
I'd have to try it. I don't want to say yes or no because I've not experimented with it. I have tried using Playwright for like automating an Excel spreadsheet. That doesn't work so well. It has to be browser based. Could be Firefox, could be Chrome. Playwright does really well in that arena, but I don't know. Yeah, sorry, Bal, I don't know how that would work.
No, that's fine. Appreciate that. Any other questions from the group? I see a lot of thank you. Thank you, Jose, Steve.
Yep, thank you all.
Yep, thanks all everybody for joining us today.
Yep, thank you so much. Appreciate that, and apologies for getting a little bit of a late start, but I did catch myself up.
It's always the technology, right?
Always.
Yeah, always.
Always. I might have, yeah. So, no, awesome. Appreciate everybody's time today. I know it's on your own time too, so being respectful of everybody's time as well. I know you end at 6. Do you have other closing slides?
No, there is nothing much. Thanks everyone for joining us. See you again next month with a new topic. Thanks all for joining.
Thank you. Have a great night.